Hello, heroes of Overwatch. We are beginning Overwatch 2 PvP testing this week.
Hello, I am Disparu, and unfortunately that announcement doesn't really apply to most of us. No, that is a specific closed alpha for sort of Blizzard staff, esports personnel, and probably some of your major influencers, but we do get another closed beta that anyone can sign up for later in April. And the way you do that is you head on over to playoverwatch.com, you scroll down, you'll see the in development sign and join beta, and it will take you through to the beta page where you can click opt in, you sign in with your account, and away you go. And it will be interesting to see if that closed beta is actually streamable, because if it is, we may start getting a lot of information about the game very soon, even though we have no release date as of yet. But what it includes, actually, to me, seemingly quite a small amount of stuff. We've got the new 5v5 system, so what they're going is it's the same role lock as before, but it's 1-2-2, so 1 tank, 2 DPS, and 2 healers. There's a new hero, Sojourn, and for some reason this is an image, so I can't even highlight what I'm talking about. There are 4 new maps, Circuit Royale, Midtown, New Queen Street, and Colosso. All sort of real-world locations that they've changed the name of because they don't actually want to refer to the real world. There's a new mode, Push, which is the big robot dude that you've got to get to each end, one or the other. Something we saw ages and ages ago, but like in most things Overwatch, they don't tend to give you many updates or anything. We're going to talk about that later, don't you worry. Hero reworks for Orisa, Doomfist, Bastion, and Sombra. Hopefully they're going to do the rest of them too, because I think at this point we're going to need it. And a new ping system. And this beta will be PC only. And to be honest, at this point I have many concerns, because I do wonder how many people will care after what they did to Overwatch and how they treated Overwatch. I do worry if everyone that was really interested in the game just got so bored they gave up on it and will really struggle to get them back. I mean, I'm sure the actual betas and the start will be a big massive event, because hey, last time they actually spoke about it, they said that the PvP part of it was going to be free if you already owned Overwatch, so a lot of people will give it a try. But if they come back and find out that this is the same old Overwatch that they always had, how many of them are going to stay? Because there was a lot of bad decisions and a lot of terrible attitudes which happened over the course of Overwatch. Because while there was a dev blog that spoke about some of these issues, unless they can actually back that up with actions rather than just words we've all heard before, I do worry how long this game could actually maintain its player base. Because Overwatch is renowned for being a game that can be incredibly fun, but also incredibly frustrating. And a lot of that came down to developer decisions.
I want to thank our players for your continued support. We recognize we haven't communicated well, haven't kept you up to date, and honestly, we've let you down when it comes to delivering Overwatch content.
The issue that I have is admitting these kind of problems would carry a lot more weight if these weren't decisions that you intentionally and deliberately made.
A few years ago, we made the call to focus our team's development efforts almost entirely on Overwatch 2. And as development of the sequel stretched on, it meant that the live game received less focus.
And I was heavily invested in Overwatch 2 for multiple years. It was kind of the only game I played or watched on streams for a long time. I remember the development decisions, I remember the announcements, and so I remember when Jeff came out and said that actually the slow work that was done on Overwatch was the players' fault, that the player base was just so toxic that the developers couldn't possibly do something like work on the game. They were so busy trying to work out how they could censor and ban players from the game that they were just like, oh, it's completely slowing all forms of development. We can't possibly make content.
Today's change in approach enables us to deliver frequent PvP content to the live game, with the goal of far exceeding Overwatch's previous rate of content release.
Because this is an interview from Jeff Kaplan back in the day, in theory long before they ever pulled off to work on another game, where they ask him what's the larger overall strategy for the game. I think we have a lot of really big plans. The way I like to talk about Overwatch is there's a crawl, walk, run strategy, and where we are with a 6v6 team-based action shooter is really at the crawl stage of where we can go. And I'm not saying we're definitely going to get to the walk and run we want to get to, but we have some pretty big plans. And those plans never arrived, did they? The game never became anything more. We were stuck, at best, with 3 heroes a year? I think it was a 4-month schedule. And if you think that releasing new content for a game that you want to survive long term every 4 months is acceptable, where you just do one hero, it was so dreadful they had to keep it on the playtest server for a month, then release it into quick play for a month before they ever put it into comp. That meant that some players would hear about a character 2 months and it would be playable, but they just didn't want to add it into the game, even though no changes would be made from one end to the other of that 2-month window. That's why I'm concerned about this game, because I loved Overwatch. I really, really want Overwatch 2 to be a success. But they're going to have to do a hell of a lot more than they are currently showing.
This includes the new 5v5 team format, new heroes, new maps, the new push game mode, significant hero updates and reworks, and many new gameplay features, including, for example, a new ping system. When you put it all together, this represents the most new content we have brought to our game since launch.
Because that's a new game mode, maps, hero, and hero rebalancing. That's all stuff that could have easily formed the first game. It doesn't scream 2 to me. It doesn't seem like a new game. It's just patches on the old one, which is in theory content that you would have expected to already have been added if they hadn't just kept it back arbitrarily to stick a 2 on the end. I think to make this an entirely new game, they're going to have an entirely different attitude and actually commit to that and work on that long term. And that's something they're really going to have to show between now and when they launch. Because I don't think just changing a few heroes will be enough to get people back and keep them around. This has to be a genuine sequel with all of the problems fixed from the first one. Because a lot of the changes they've made so far are simply things that players asked for in the first game and were turned down. They were frowned upon by Jeff Kaplan, who said these things simply can't work in our game. Things like the ping system. And they did it many times. Roll lock, not having 2 tanks, and a ping system are all things that were suggested to them, and at some point or another they were all turned down, only to be added in afterwards, far too late, when the game was already losing massive amounts of players, because they refused to make the changes that would have actually improved the game. Instead, it often felt that they focused far more on esports, because esports with a $20 million buy-in per team is easy money. They bragged about how they spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours on tools for esports that only about 10 people would ever see, and is completely and utterly useless to the people that actually matter, the ones which are playing the games. I have no idea why Blizzard thought that esports is something that could keep your game alive, but it tends to be people playing your game which makes your esports successful, not the other way around. And this is why I'm cautious. They've still got the esports. If they focus on that as a means of balancing things, they'll run into the same issues as before. If they ignore obvious choices that people are going, look, this is awful, 2 tanks ruins the game because no one can shoot people in your first-person shooter because we're all too busy shooting big, massive, tanky dudes or their shields, or are simply too slow to respond when those become problems, then the game will follow a very similar decline as the first one. But I played, followed, and watched Overwatch almost obsessively at a very important part of my life. And even just going back to this video and going through the music, it brings back so much nostalgia and so many good memories. There's a hell of a lot of frustrating and raging ones as well, but I really, really enjoyed the game at first, before they made all of those bad decisions. At its core, I do think Overwatch can be an incredible shooter, but it can also be incredibly quickly destroyed. And it's really going to come down to the dev team and whether they can completely and utterly change their entire attitude and how they handle and work on the game in order to try and make it successful. And the question is, I'm not sure they can do it. It really comes down to how much the leadership was in control of that, or whether it was people on the ground making those decisions. Because they have entirely changed the leadership, so they have the possibility to do this. And they seem to be making the right noises to go, okay, we realize what we did there and that was wrong. The question is if they can now make the right decisions rather than just realizing that they shouldn't make the same bad ones. So we're going to have to wait and see. But I invested so much time and effort into that game that I do genuinely hope that this is a real sequel. I just don't know whether it'll be enough to actually recapture the player base, which they lost through their own inaction. We'll have to wait and see, and personally, I hope that they make a big success of it, but I'm just not sure how confident in that I really am. And I hope they come out with more information in the future to give me that confidence, because I'd love nothing more than to have my doubts proven wrong about this. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video, and subscribe. More videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.